Hello, seventh grade. Okay, so I wanted to talk to you about what I'm asking you to do today, Tuesday, and tomorrow, Wednesday. So this is an assignment for 2 days this week, Tuesday and Wednesday, and I'm asking for it to be finished by the time you get to school on Thursday. And so what we're going to be talking about over the course of the next 2 weeks is called investigating characters. It's basically having us look at the characters of a story and asking ourselves, how does the author reveal that character to us? And so, um, at school on Monday or at home on Monday, I asked you guys to take notes using a level up tutorial called Methods of Characterization. And in those notes, you should have gotten a little bit of knowledge about direct and indirect characterization. And so I'm going to just quickly review that, talk a little bit more about indirect characterization. And then I'm going to show you an example using the book The Hunger Games of what I would like you to do today and tomorrow using the book Ghost, which is the book that we're going to be using for the next couple of weeks. And so our learning target for the next 2 days is good readers look closely at what the author says about characters, direct characterization, and what the author shows about characters, indirect characterization, through their words, thoughts, effect on others, actions, and looks. So I want to talk a little bit more about indirect characterization. So you guys, in indirect characterization, the author reveals tons of details about a character's personality to us. And so the author is never directly telling us what a character is like. They're showing us what a character is like by giving us details about the character's speech, the character's thoughts, the character's effect on other people, the character's actions, and then lastly, the character's looks. And so it's our job as readers, when we're reading a book, to kind of pick up on these small details that the author is giving us based on these 5 things and asking ourselves, well, what does that tell us about this character's personality? So, to go through all 5 really quickly, a good reader pays attention to the character's speech. So, we ask ourselves, what does the character say and how does the character speak? Based on the things the character says and based on the way that character speaks, that might reveal to us what type of character this character is. Maybe this character oftentimes says really funny, sarcastic things. Maybe this character oftentimes says mean things to their classmates. Those words are going to help us understand that character's personality. Then we look at a character's thoughts. So, what is revealed through the character's private thoughts and feelings? Well, maybe our character in our book, appears really nice based on the things that they say, but then we kind of hear their thoughts and we realize that maybe they aren't as nice as we think. And so sometimes we have to pay attention to a character's thoughts because their thoughts are going to give us lots of good information about who they are. The third is effect on others. So, what is revealed through the character's effect on other people? So, how does this character interact with other people and how are they received? Does this character have good relationships with other people? How do other characters feel or behave in response to that character? Then we have actions. This one is obviously the one that is probably the easiest to find. So, what does the character do and how does the character behave? Based on the character's behavior and their decisions and their choices, what can we tell about who this character is as a person? And then lastly, sometimes the author doesn't tell us what a character looks like. We have to infer it based on the things that we do hear about the character. And so, guys, these are 5 things that good readers pay close attention to when reading in order to help them understand the characters a little bit better. And so I want to show you a quick example using the book The Hunger Games. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to read small sections of just the first couple of pages of the Hunger Games to you. And you're going to notice that I have put little Post-it notes in my book where I've kind of jotted down like what's going on in the story and what that's helping me understand about the character. And so, what I want you to be listening for is, what is this information revealing about the character? And then looking at how I've taken my notes in order to jot this information down. And so, if you've never read the book The Hunger Games before, it's a science fiction novel about a bunch of different groups of people, like sections of people, and they're called districts. And all of these districts, there are 12 of them, all 12 districts sort of pick a boy and a girl to fight it out in the Hunger Games every single year. And all of these districts are relatively poor, except for one of them, which is called the capital. This is the district that puts on the Hunger Games. And so in the first couple of pages, we get introduced to the main character, Katniss. And so you're going to be seeing me explore Katniss a little bit more, paying attention to indirect characterization, where the author's forcing me to make inferences about who a character is based on their actions, their thoughts, and so on and so forth. So I'm going to go to the first page here. So this is my first page. So I'm going to read this section to you, and then I'm going to explain what this note here is all about, because I'm going to ask you to take notes just like these ones. All right, so I'm actually going to start reading right about here, okay? And I know we've got it covered up here, but I'm going to start reading right about here, and I'm going to stop, and I'm going to explain to you, as a reader, what did I just learn about my character. Here we go. Prim's face is as fresh as a raindrop, as lovely as the primrose for which she was named. My mother was very beautiful once, too, or so they tell me. Sitting at Prim's knees, guarding her, is the world's ugliest cat. Mashed-in nose, half of one ear missing, eyes the color of rotting squash. Prim named him Buttercup, insisting that his muddy yellow coat matched the bright flower. He hates me, or at least distrusts me. Even though it was years ago, I think he still remembers how I tried to drown him in a bucket when Prim brought him home. Scrawny kitten, belly swollen with worms, crawling with fleas. The last thing I needed was another mouth to feed. But Prim begged so hard, cried even. I had to let him stay. It turned out okay. My mother got rid of the vermin, and he's a born mouser, even catches the occasional rat. Okay, I'm going to stop there because at the bottom of this page, the author gives us a little story that she's telling about how her sister Prim brings home a cat one day, and the cat's like disgusting, and Katniss tries to drown it. And her thought process is, we don't need another mouth to feed, so I'm going to drown this cat. But notice her sister, Prim, is begging so hard, crying, that Katniss chooses to let him stay. I had to let him stay. And so as a reader, I ask myself, and I stop there and I say, okay, Katniss just tried to drown a cat, but she stopped when she saw how important the cat was to her sister. And so as a reader, I ask myself, well, based on that action and based on that choice that she just made, what does that tell us about her? And so let's kind of check out my notes over here. And so I stopped and I said, okay, based on the actions, obviously this is indirect characterization because I'm making an inference and I'm writing this down in my notes. Indirect, based on her actions. Here's what I noticed in the text. She tried to drown the kitten, too many mouths to feed, but stopped when her sister was upset. Notice I just kind of quickly jotted down what was going on. And then I kind of wrote down, well, what does that tell me about her? So you guys, based on the fact that she stopped kind of messing with the kitten And when Prim was crying and begging she let the cat stay, this tells me that Katniss is probably merciful. That means she's willing to show mercy to things. And so she showed mercy to the cat here. So I think this tells me that she's probably a person that's very merciful. And I also wrote down that this kind of tells me that she's caring, right? If she didn't care about her sister, she probably would have continued what she was doing with the cat. But obviously, she saw how upset her sister was, and she decided to let the cat stay. So this tells me that Katniss is probably a really caring person. Do you see how, as I read, the author didn't tell me she was caring? The author didn't tell me she was merciful. I had to come up with those words in my head based on her actions. And so what I did was I had Post-it notes at home. So I just wrote it on Post-it notes and put it inside the book. But you guys don't have Post-it notes at home. And so you're probably just going to either write down on a piece of paper or open up a Google Doc and write down some notes. What part of the story did you come to that gave you some information about what type of person that character is? Let's look at another quick example. And so I'm going to start reading right here. Okay, actually right here. And then you'll be able to see my notes here. Concealed by a clump of bushes, I flatten out my belly and slide under the 2-foot stretch that's been loose for years. There are several other weak spots in the fence, but this one is so close to home I almost always enter the woods here. As soon as I'm in the trees, I retrieve a bow and sheath of arrows from a hollow log. Electrified or not, the fence has been successful at keeping the flesh eaters out of District 12. Inside the woods, they roam freely, and there are added concerns like venomous snakes, rabid animals, and no real paths to follow. But there's also food if you know how to find it. My father knew, and he taught me some before he was blown to bits in a mine explosion. There was nothing even to bury. I was 11 then. 5 years later, I will wake up screaming for him to run. So guys, as a reader, I'm going to go ahead and stop there because I noticed something about Katniss. Up here, it tells me that Katniss she crawls under a fence. She crawls under a fence that's kind of like off limits. And it sounds like she goes out there to hunt. It's kind of telling us everything that fence keeps out, but also she's out there looking for food. And so, guys, this is Katniss's actions. And so based on her actions, I'm going to write down what she's doing and then what that tells me about her. So based on this, I'm noticing that Katniss is going into a restricted area to look for food. And she's looking for the food for her family. And so as a reader, I ask myself, well, what does this tell me? And I'm thinking that this tells me that she's resourceful. She knows how to use the resources that she learned from her dad and, that she's kind of learned from life to get what she wants. Kind of also noticing that she's a risk taker. She's not supposed to be out there, but she's doing it anyway. So she's willing to take risks. And then lastly, I'm noticing that she likes to take care of her family, right? She cares very much about Prim. She's out there looking for food. Kind of tells me that she likes to take care of her family or feels that she needs to. So again, notice on both of my notes, I wrote down what type of characterization, what I was looking at. So this time I'm looking at her actions, what's going on in the story, and then what does that tell me about my character? And so you're going to do that too. And so what I've uploaded for you is this, will look like this. And so we have this book, Ghost. Now, obviously, you're not at school, so I don't have a paper copy of the book for you. And so you're going to have to use this digital copy of the book that I have uploaded. I've also uploaded audio. Okay, so if you want to listen to the book, you may also do that. And I'm going to ask that you read chapters 1 and chapter 2 of the book Ghost by Wednesday night. And as you read, I want you to stop and think about the details that the author is showing us about the main character through what he says, what he does, what he thinks, and the effect he has on other people, just like I did in Hunger Games. And if and when you come to part of the text that you think might be an example of indirect characterization, where the author is helping us kind of make an inference about that character, we're going to stop and we're going to jot it down, just like I did, just like I did here, okay? And so if you don't have Post-it notes, which you probably don't, just get a piece of paper and just write down what's going on in your book. What does that tell us about the character? Okay? What's going on in the book? What does that tell us about the character? What words are we coming up with about that character? And so, I keep going back and forth. So we are going to jot down 6 notes. I'm going to highlight that for you. 6 notes about our character through chapter 1 and chapter 2. 6 total notes where you are writing down what information the author is telling us and what words we are using to describe that character based on that information. And so when you come to school on Thursday, I'm going to be looking for 6 notes that resemble notes like this. Again, where I've jotted down what's going on in the story and what does that tell me about the character. That's what I'm going to be looking for when you come to school on Thursday. Okay, guys, I will be available on Wednesday for you if you need help, but ultimately, good luck. Use the audio if you need it. The chapters are not long at all, and then I will see you on Thursday. Bye.